At the beginning of the story, we see some prisoners being forced to break stones. Here, every 3 prisoners were tied together with a chain. Among them were 3 men, Delmar, Pete, and Everett, who had decided to escape from prison that very day. While running away, the 3 of them reached a barn, where they stole a chicken and satisfied their hunger. They knew about a secret treasure, and that was the reason they had decided to escape. After that, they ran behind a train passing nearby, so that they could climb aboard and escape. But Pete couldn't get on the train because all 3 of them were chained together. As a result, all of them fell outside the train. They started blaming each other, when suddenly an old man appeared, passing by with a cart. The 3 of them sat in his cart. The man was blind and didn't realize that they were dressed in prison clothes. But the old man told them that the treasure they were seeking would never be theirs, yet something far more valuable awaited them. This felt strange to the 3, but they didn't pay much attention to his words. Then the 3 arrived at Pete's cousin's house. There, his cousin's son mistook them for bank employees and almost shot them. Later, they went to Pete's cousin, who cut off their chains and also served them dinner. At night, while sitting in his house, the 3 listened to a song on the radio which they found very beautiful. Afterward, they fell asleep. But at midnight, they heard a noise. They realized that Pete's cousin had called the police for the reward money. The police ordered them to come outside. But when they refused, the police set fire to the entire barn. Just then, the cousin's son arrived with a car to help them escape. Somehow, the 3 managed to get away, and after going some distance, they sent the cousin's son back home. But a few moments later, their car broke down. So, they went to a mechanic, but the mechanic told them that the parts needed for their car would only arrive after 2 weeks. And they couldn't stay in that place for so long. So, Everett went and explained this to the other 2. They had to reach the treasure within the next 4 days. If they didn't make it in time, the area would be flooded, and everything would sink underwater. Everett wasn't the kind of man to give up so easily. He had stolen a gold watch from Pete's cousin's house, and suggested that they could sell it to buy another car. Pete didn't like this at all, feeling upset that Everett had stolen something valuable from his cousin's home. Just then, they heard the sound of singing. They saw many women, dressed in white clothes, walking toward a nearby pond. The 3 of them followed the women. Delmar, watching the women take dips in the water, jumped in as well. Soon Pete did too. But Everett refused, afraid that his hair would get ruined. He loved his hair dearly, almost obsessively. Meanwhile, the police were still chasing them relentlessly. The 3 finally sold the gold watch and bought another car to continue their journey. While traveling, they saw a young man on the roadside asking for a lift. They stopped and let him in. The boy introduced himself as Tommy, and started talking with them about music. Tommy revealed that the previous night he had sold his soul to the devil, in exchange for the ability to play special music. He told them about a man he was heading to, a man who paid money if he liked someone's music. The 3, tempted by the money, went along with Tommy to meet the man. That man too was blind, and he asked them to sing some old songs. If their singing was good, he promised to broadcast it on his radio channel and give them some money from the earnings. The 3 began singing, and their performance impressed the radio man greatly. He kept his word and paid them. That night, they lit a fire and rested at a spot, talking about what they would do in life once they finally found the treasure. But suddenly, once again, the sound of the police was heard. The police had tracked them down again. But this time, they assumed the 3 were hiding inside a house nearby. So, just like before, the policemen set the place on fire. In the blaze, their newly bought car was also destroyed. With no other option left, the 3 set out on foot to continue their journey. Suddenly, from behind, a car came speeding toward them, with banknotes flying out of it. It turned out to be a criminal who had just robbed a bank. Some policemen were chasing him too. The 3 decided to join him for the journey and jumped into his car. The man opened the car door and stepped out, firing bullets at the police. Forced into retreat, the policemen abandoned their chase. The man introduced himself as George Nelson and took them to a city, where he robbed yet another bank. But by nighttime, George suddenly changed his mind, and handed over all his stolen money to the 3 before leaving them behind. The next day, at the radio station where the 3 had once sung their song, people began arriving, demanding to hear it again. Their song had become extremely popular. The station owner ordered his men to find the 3 before some other radio station signed them. Meanwhile, the trio continued traveling on foot, surviving by stealing food here and there. One day, Everett went to a shop to buy hair gel for his beloved hair. Outside, they found a car, which the 3 promptly stole and escaped with. As they traveled further, through the forests, they came across 3 young women washing clothes by the riverside. Unable to resist, they went near the girls. And after some time, the 3 fell asleep. When they woke up, they discovered that Pete was missing, but his clothes lay scattered there. From inside the clothes, a frog suddenly jumped out. Seeing this, Delmar became convinced that the women had used black magic to turn Pete into a frog. So, believing it to be him, Delmar and Everett carried the frog with them, hoping Pete would return to his human form someday. Everett was not fully convinced that the frog was actually Pete. Still, the two of them kept the frog locked inside a small box and went to a restaurant to eat. While they were eating, a fat man noticed them and approached. He told them that he knew many secret ways through which they could earn money, but not here, outside in the open air. Trusting his words, they packed their food and went outside with him. Once outside, the man waited for the right moment, then beat them with a stick, stole all their money, killed the frog, and drove away in their car. Now, beaten and robbed, they had nothing left. Meanwhile, we see Pete caught by the prison guards. They were brutally beating him, demanding to know where Delmar and Everett were. The next day, Delmar and Everett asked a truck driver for a lift to continue their journey. On the way, they saw other prisoners from their own jail working in the area. Among them, they spotted Pete. Everett turned to Delmar and asked, "Does Pete happen to have a twin brother in jail too?" After several more days of travel, the two finally reached Everett's hometown, the place where he had lived before going to prison. At that time, a mayoral election was about to be held, and one of the candidates was giving a speech. When his speech ended, 3 little girls came onto the stage and sang a song. They were none other than Everett's daughters. Everett immediately went to meet them. But his daughters had been told by their mother that their father had died by throwing himself in front of a train, and that she was soon going to remarry. Hearing this broke Everett deeply inside, yet he couldn't do much. Soon, Everett went to see his wife, who was at a store buying groceries. He asked her why she had lied to the children. She replied, "What was I supposed to tell them? That their father was rotting away in jail?" At that moment, the man she was about to marry, her soon-to-be second husband, arrived there. Everett confronted his wife, asking why she was doing this. She answered that the man she was going to marry had a good job and respect in the society. "But you, Everett, you have nothing." Then her new husband beat Everett badly, and after that, the storekeeper threw him out as well. Later, Everett and Delmar sat in a cinema hall watching a movie. At that time, the police arrived there with all the prisoners, since it was the day the inmates were allowed to watch a film. Among them was Pete. Pete noticed Everett and Delmar and told them they should stop chasing after the treasure. That night, Pete was sleeping in prison when Everett and Delmar came, cut his chains, and broke him out. Once outside, Pete apologized to them, admitting that on the day he was caught, he had betrayed them by trying to reach the treasure alone. But the police caught him, and he deeply regretted what he had done. Then Everett hesitated, but finally confessed the truth. He didn't actually know about any treasure at all. He had lied to both of them, because they were chained together, and he had no other way to escape prison. He had heard that his wife was about to remarry, and he desperately wanted to break free. Pete grew furious at this revelation. He only had 2 weeks left on his sentence, but now, since he had escaped, if caught, he would face life imprisonment. The three began arguing among themselves. But suddenly, they saw strange happenings in the forest. Tommy, the boy who had sold his soul to the devil, was about to be sacrificed that very night. He was being dragged there for the ritual. The three rushed in, fought back, and somehow rescued Tommy, escaping from the cult. That same day, the new mayor of the town was about to be chosen. A grand party was being held, where both candidates were present. Everett's wife was there too, and the three needed to get inside to convince her. So, disguised with fake beards, they entered as performers. They began singing songs, while Everett tried to win back his wife. Just then, the opposing mayoral candidate arrived, the same man they had seen earlier among the devil worshippers. The trio then began singing the famous song from the radio station and everyone began cheering for them. But then, the rival candidate noticed them. He stopped the music and announced to everyone that these men were escaped convicts and that Tommy had sold his soul to the devil. However, the people loved their song so much that instead of believing him, they grew angry at his words and threw him out of the party. With him gone, the other candidate was declared the new mayor. He was delighted with the trio, and he officially pardoned them from their prison sentences. Everyone sang joyfully, and the party came to an end. Everett then tried once more to convince his wife to marry him again, and this time, she agreed, but only on one condition: he had to bring back the same wedding ring he had once given her before their marriage. Soon after, they saw George Nelson being taken away. He was now being called the biggest criminal of the century, and sentenced to death. Yet, even in this moment, George seemed strangely happy. The next morning, the three men went to retrieve the ring, which is at a cabin in the valley which Everett had earlier claimed was the location of his treasure. But the prison guards had already reached that spot, waiting for them, since Pete, after being beaten, had revealed everything. The guards prepared to execute them. Everett and the others tried to explain that the mayor had personally pardoned them last night and ordered their release. But the guards refused to believe them. Just as the warden was about to kill them, the flood came. They clung onto floating debris and managed to survive. Amid the swirling waters, Everett even spotted his wedding ring floating and retrieved it. With the ring in hand, Everett returned to his wife, ready to remarry her. However, when Everett presents the ring to his wife, it turns out it was her aunt's ring. She declares that she will not marry him with that ring, but only her wedding ring, which is still lost. The story ends here.